still deep underwater. Frankie mentions that they're almost at the place called Oak House. Contrary to what most people thought, the area is surprisingly quiet. Whitebeard's mascot makes a brief appearance, but Orochimaru and Kabuto are already preparing a warm welcome for the crew. After all, nobody expects to be attacked by a ship underwater. But, as it turns out, a ship deep in the sea tends to attract attention. Usopp quickly senses something's off, but by the time he realizes the trouble, it's already too late. The chaos begins. Luffy, ever curious, asks, "Who are these guys?" "Alright, crewmates, wrong answers only, let's hear them." Nami immediately recognizes the cowfish. Meanwhile, the cowfish has a flashback of nearly becoming steak at the hands of the Straw Hats. As Orochimaru makes his move toward them, Chopper, overcome with fear, bolts from the scene. The rest of the crew? They're just quietly observing the situation. But the cowfish doesn't want any part of this. He bolts like a scared cat darting across the street. Jared Leto's Joker and the Penguin, yes, that penguin, are left confused, wondering why their cowfish ally ran off. Orochimaru, on the other hand, is brimming with confidence, fully convinced he's about to obliterate everyone. What he doesn't realize, he's now alone, facing the entire crew. Frankie, ever ready, prepares to demonstrate what happens to those who don't leave a like on the video. So, don't be like Orochimaru, smash that like button, crewmate. At the last second, Orochimaru caves under pressure and leaves a like, so Frankie spares him the boot off the ship. The crew then questions whether Orochimaru is the captain of the runaway ship. Smartly, he plays it cool, claiming he's just a side character trying to snag some spotlight in this episode. But Nami cuts to the chase, asking him where he got his hands on a cowfish. Orochimaru, however, seems completely fixated on the mermaid standing before him. At least until Sanji decides to show him the bottom of his boot. Things take a turn when Sanji steps in, delivering a kick so hard it leaves Orochimaru dazed. But then Orochimaru glances at Nami and has an even worse reaction. Talk about a double whammy. Orochimaru mumbles that he's forgotten where he got the cowfish. Can't blame him, that kick probably knocked the memory out of his head. Meanwhile, the cowfish is still fleeing for its life. Let's just hope these two never cross paths with Batman. Now, Luffy's got a new goal. He wants a sea monster as a pet. But for the moment, he's content whacking Orochimaru with his staff. Nami, meanwhile, puts on a jacket.
Why?
Probably because you're not paying attention to the story, crewmate. Don't worry, neither am I. Brook chimes in, complaining that his skin is freezing. Oh, wait. That's the punchline of Chopper's skeleton joke, which is so bad it sends Brook spiraling into depression. Honestly, I'm right there with him. Even so, Brook manages to explain about the new currents they'll be facing ahead. If you love Brook as much as I do, drop a Brook, my crewmate, in the comments. Frankie jumps in to add his own explanation about the currents, and suddenly we get a cool illustration in the shape of Shenron from Dragon Ball. Then, Sinister Brook shows up. Yeah, that's what you get for not commenting his name. Enjoy your nightmares tonight. Nami starts another one of her podcast-style explanations. But guess what? No one's paying attention. They're all too busy sipping tea and chilling. Frustrated, Nami loses her patience, realizing she's basically been talking to thin air. Robin, meanwhile, is calmly reading The Return of the Ones Who Never Left. Just as things seem to settle, the mysterious current finally appears. Nami's freaking out, thinking this might be the end. Zoro. He couldn't care less. He's lost so often it's just another Tuesday for him. But hold on, they're not alone out here. Orochimaru, ever the confident one, orders them to turn around. Sure, buddy, as if that's even possible. Then the Kraken appears before them. Unless Kratos suddenly shows up on the ship, things are about to get ugly. Orochimaru keeps whining, begging them to turn back, but Luffy tells him to shut up because the anime where Orochimaru has any clout is a completely different one. Luffy declares that he's going to tame the beast like it's part of a circus act. Quick commercial break. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, crewmate. Alright, now that you've hit that subscribe button, let's get back to the action. The crew is pretty sure Luffy must have hit his head somewhere because, seriously, who thinks they can tame something that massive? But Luffy's determined. No one can stop him now. Meanwhile, Robin is off to the side sketching the Kraken, probably to sell prints on Shopee later. Zoro asks Luffy how exactly he plans to pull this off, and Luffy, ever the visionary, replies, "Don't stifle the artist." Sanji, true to form, tries to cozy up to Nami. Shockingly, this time he doesn't end up embarrassing himself. Orochimaru, however, is utterly confused as to why the crew is just hanging around like nothing's wrong while they're getting closer and closer to the Kraken. Enter Batman's villains. They've returned, apparently to save Orochimaru. Honestly, they would have been better off going toe-to-toe with Batman himself, because the Kraken doesn't even break a sweat. With one powerful squeeze, the sea monster crushes them, sending everyone floating around like jellyfish. Even Zoro can't argue with me on this one. Now the Kraken turns its attention to the crew, surging toward them with terrifying speed. Usopp acts fast, holding Zoro and Sanji back to keep them from bursting their protective bubble. Frankie, ever the skilled pilot, dodges the Kraken's attack. But Luffy... oh no, Luffy's ready to charge straight at it, fists flying. Even Orochimaru decides to pitch in, because if the ship sinks, he's going down with it too. And just like that, they head straight for the Kraken. The fight is on, but they forget the rope to keep themselves tied to the ship. Zoro, ever the practical one, declares he wants octopus for dinner. Luffy, however, quickly shuts that down, insisting that the Kraken is going to be their new mascot. The problem? The Kraken isn't exactly on board with this plan and tries to attack the Sunny. Frankie jumps into action, defending the ship like a pro. Even Chopper steps up, blocking one of the Kraken's strikes. But in all the chaos, they're dangerously close to crashing into a massive underwater mountain. Thankfully, Robin is there to save the day. Using her powers, she summons two giant hands to steer the ship clear of disaster. Crisis averted, for now. Luffy gears up, quite literally, activating his Gear 3rd. He inflates his arm with air, preparing a massive punch to take down the Kraken. But he has to act fast. His hand is already in the water, and things could get dicey. That's when Sanji decides to step out of the protective bubble. Flashing back to the days when he ran from the Okama on Kamabaka Island, he channels that trauma into a devastating kick. His flambe strike scorches one of the Kraken's tentacles. Meanwhile, Zoro draws his swords in dramatic fashion and slices through the Kraken's other tentacles like a master chef prepping sushi. But Luffy isn't having it. He scolds them both because he needs the Kraken's tentacles intact to pull and guide the Sunny. So, Luffy takes matters into his own hands, literally, and lands a colossal punch straight out of the Luffy seal of quality collection, putting the Kraken to sleep. As the dust settles, the shark-dog hybrid finally breaks free from the Kraken's grip. The crew finds it odd that the creature is wearing a shirt, which is pretty rich coming from a group that includes a talking reindeer and a skeleton who's both dead and alive. It seems the Kraken is down for the count, but Zoro, ever the realist, tells everyone to get back to the ship. Before they can relax, the Kraken, now falling unconscious, drags the entire crew along as the powerful underwater current yanks them with terrifying force. Of course, forgetting the rope was going to end badly. As expected, the lack of a rope quickly turns into a disaster. The Sunny itself begins getting pulled by the current. Nami steps up, rallying everyone to keep the ship on course. Each crew member is doing their best to avoid becoming a tragic tale of pirates lost at sea. All the while, no one has any idea where the current is taking them. Meanwhile, Luffy and the others are completely at the mercy of the raging waters. After what feels like an eternity of chaos, they finally wake up. At least they're alive. But the eerie silence is unsettling. The vibe is like that episode of El Chavo del Ocho when everyone accuses Chavo of stealing their stuff. The crew on the Sunny realizes something important. They have no idea where Luffy and the others are. Robin, ever the optimist, chimes in with, "Let's hope they haven't turned into sea monster food." Speaking of sea monsters, the next big issue is the complete lack of light to search for them. Oh, and by the way, they're now 7,000 meters below the surface. In short, they're in serious trouble. And just look at all the grotesque creatures surrounding them. It's a nightmare come to life. To make matters worse, they still have another 3,000 meters to go before they can reach Fishman Island. Nami's frustration boils over. "This wouldn't have happened if you guys had just used the rope," she scolds. Frankie, ever the practical one, shrugs. "What's done is done, people. Let's go find them." He reveals that he has a built-in spotlight system in his body. And where are these spotlights located? On his nipples, of course. As soon as he turns them on, the situation takes another turn for the worse. The grotesque sea monsters surrounding them suddenly notice the Sunny. And now, the real danger begins. Get the Sunny out of there. And on the next episode of One Piece, Franky will channel the intense stare of a titan. More of Nami and Robin's charm on display. Brook will finally tell a skeleton joke without getting interrupted. They'll face off against a pint-sized sea monster. And Sanji, well, it looks like he might meet his destiny. What's the title of the next episode? Underwater Volcanic Eruption. The Straw Hats in Panic. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss this continuation. It'll be a real treat having you as part of the crew. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.